Welcome to Level with Emily Reese. This is music by Chase Bethea for the game Aground. Now, we've had Chase on to talk about Aground before, but this soundtrack release is different, so we talked again. The Aground Deluxe release includes 9 more tracks and piano sheet music for 3 of the tracks. This interview that I had with Chase happened at the very end of 2020, in fact, on December 30th in 2020, just to give you some perspective there. Chase starts off explaining why he decided to re-release the music from Aground and include new tracks.
The developer told me that the game would be coming out October 2019. And I had been doing some research that you need to at least get a buzz going on at least a month before, especially for press to catch up and all of those things too. Mm-hmm. And so what I did was release it in the end of August. So I figured that gives about September leeway, and boom, October happens.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing that was true about October was that my contract ended, but the game didn't release.
Okay.
So I had released a soundtrack that was about maybe 5 months ahead of schedule.
Oh, wow.
Which is, kind of a good thing, but then not kind of a good thing, because I also was told that the console ports, I guess, would kind of be around that time as well. That kind of got pushed in all kinds of directions as well.
Okay.
And so the game came out April 17th.
Okay. 2020.
2020, Aground released officially.
Mm-hmm.
All the paths, well, almost all the paths. There was a hybrid path that happened to release, I think, 2 or 3, well, some months before, I should say. Some month is better.
Okay.
And so, I tested the ambit of my patience to figure out how can I spin this? So I was like, what if we just put the tracks that were rejected, and I throw the trailer music tracks in there too, because I scored those for the actual trailer. And there was a DLC, right? Because that didn't launch on April 17th, 2020. That I could add in there as well, because a lot of the Agroundians, as I call them, they were hankering for that. They were like, where is the track that was demoed for the other game that they didn't know about, and that the developer threw in there? Where are the tracks for the mini games, which the developer used from a different game that we scored called Deity Quest? Where are the DLC tracks? And I'm like, So I'm like, I've got to spin this fast. And the best thing I could think of was like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to release in a deluxe version. That way, they're not just getting 4 tracks. They're going to get some rejected tracks. They're going to get the ones they were looking for. But these are the ones also, like there was an Earth track that was rejected that I had to revise. They can see some of the progression. And some of them caught on to it very fast. We're like, is this the one? This also sounds like this one. And I'm like, hence the rejected tracks. Like I didn't change that much.
Yeah.
But I went ahead. But what was different about the rejected tracks is that I went back and, like, to answer your question in the beginning, I did go back and revisit some of them. And so the 3 of those tracks that I had revisited, I think it was like Bionic Civilization and Manic Mayhem, I extended. So even the developer, I don't even think heard those extensions that I had went beyond to finish, because I figured if it's going to be a proper soundtrack release, then I got to give some more content into it and put a little bit more creativity about how I would have envisioned it to be in the initial first place.
Talk to me about the rejected tracks, and we'll talk about them more specifically, but just conceptually speaking, when you're sending in a track for approval, so to speak, how mixed is it? Do you send it in as final a version as possible, or are you sending kind of a rougher mix just to give them the idea of it?
It really depends. So I think in this case for Aground, I was sending concepts. And I found that working with the specific developer, that is the safest route.
Okay.
Because then I don't waste a bunch of time trying to start all over. Even though I'm fast and I can do a track in a day or so, 2 days most.
Yeah.
That's still a lot of time. And then when I mean a day, I mean within, probably 4 to 6 hours, of me getting all the creativity out of me at once.
Yeah.
So that's still a lot of time to put into something and then say, yeah, we're not really feeling this. I don't really think this works. Yep. Did you try it with the game? So that is something to consider. So concept tracks are about a minute to 2 minutes. Because I know, especially with the way Aground is structured, if you notice, there are 4 to 6 minute tracks, mostly hitting the 4 minute mark to make sure that they're not as monotonous and trying to extend it on there as best as I can.
Yeah, we talked quite a bit about that when we talked about this game last year, in 2019. I'm well aware, you and I, first of all, were talking on one of the last days of 2020, so it's going to be a very confusing this year, last year.
This is true.
In any event, we initially spoke about this music in 2019, and that was one of the things that I had noticed, because a lot of times game music really sometimes is only 2.5 minutes or maybe 3.5 minutes. And so to see longer tracks is really refreshing. And so we ended up talking about that quite a bit. There was a track too, because you mentioned, not... the balance of how much time you're spending on a track, before it's approved and such. And I remember you talking about a track that you said, you kind of pushed back against that they really weren't liking at first. And you're like, no, just play it in the game, trust me. And that finally did happen, and it worked out, right?
Yes, that is the main theme of Aground, called No Boundaries, No Sky Limits. That was the one that took me 3 months to write. The reason it took me 3 months is because when I played the prototype in, what was that? I want to say 2017, July. I played it and I was hooked. I realized it was hooked because I didn't think about anything else except for just playing the feeling of the game. I wasn't thinking about much. I wasn't distracted with why this doesn't work, why this doesn't, so on and so forth, even for the earliest of prototypes. And I found myself playing it for an hour, and I played it again. And then I also was starting a senior year in college, which was my recital that I was stressing out about a lot. And I wanted my recital I wanted to make history and be perfect. And I can tell you, that's not something you want to do, but I did it. But regardless, I had some things to prep for, and it was kind of, even though I had the prototype early in the time frame I had before the semester started, I just couldn't hear it yet. And when one day I was driving, as I found that I'm the creative that works well in small spaces to come up with abundant and pretty much a fulsome of ideas, that it was then time to take my time to do it and not, like I said, not do the whole track in a couple days or a week, but really expand and think about the palette that was happening, because this was actually the first time this developer was working with an external artist that he wasn't familiar with. So we were all new, and the art was so rich and customized that I felt that palette and that music had to be the same. And in that respect, the artist is the one who had pushed back and said, I wasn't expecting this, because he's actually a retro gamer aficionado like me. And so he wasn't expecting this hybrid sound of a call to, he was expecting extremely just chiptune stuff. But what he got was what he got was a Chase Bethea sound.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to just get straight that with that kind of customized art, because the art wasn't just straight pixel art. It was,
right.
but it wasn't. So that was what I was trying to match, was what the feeling of the game was really trying to tell me. And it was kind of scary. And I know the developer was also on a deadline for themselves because they wanted to get it out in a certain time. I think they were just having a baby, so they wanted to kind of like, hey, our time is going to be gone. We want to get this out now to see how it goes. But I implored them, like, after it took 2.5 to 3 months to get it done, play it in the game. Because they just listened to it out of context. And as soon as they put it in, that's when everybody really, I think, took off. And to this day, I still get compliments on that theme. And that's what I've really learned, is if there's something that you're uncertain about, it's okay to take your time with it. In fact, it'll probably be better.
You said something about making history in your recital, and I've been a little stuck on that. What did you mean by that?
In my recital at Cal State Northridge, I don't think there was ever a recital where they played music to a game that was being played live, not recorded, being played live by a player on stage, and the music adapting to that music as it was being performed and played at the same time, as well as streamed online.
Whoa, that's fun.
I like to think so. It was fun for me. I felt like my soul left my body for 2 days after that one. So I know now that putting all of that together is not something. I mean, I had some help, but to do the logistics of it was really important to me, because I had designed even the program to be video game themed. Wow. I had video game questions of a game that I've been designing, the trivia stuff to win prizes. I made it a really interactive concert all the way through, no matter what angle you look at it, from the performance to the intermission type of interjections of, like I was saying, from playing those type of games to playing the game. Everything I was supposed to be interactive, because that's what games are.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's really cool. Talk to me about, some of the revisiting you did of this music. And, did you find that, not that it had been years and years or anything, but did you kind of adapt how you felt about any of the music from the last time we talked?
Yeah, I think that the revisiting for the music, it was a little arduous at first, because I didn't know how it was going to be received. So because there were so many, I keep thinking about waves. And if you miss that wave, if you're surfing, I've never been surfing before, but I understand it. You miss that wave. It's hard to catch another good wave. You're like, man, that was the one. You're like, you could wait days, it might be months to get a really good wave. And so that was what the feeling I was getting. I was like, the game is shipped. What am I going to do? How do I extend this? How do I approach this? And if you're listening, there's a difference in the DLC music. There's a little, and I think that transition happens from Mars Metal Alchemist into, which is Abyssal Depths, and the other one, which is, this is escaping my mind, but it's really important. the other track that I composed, those are starting to evolve a lot more than from the original soundtrack. And so by the time I revisit, Bionic Civilization and Manic Mayhem, I'm probably pulling those sounds, but trying to keep the same sound palette together at this point. It's almost like there was this, what was that ridiculous movie, Fast 9 or something, where I think The Rock is holding on to some truck and some helicopter at the same time. That's me with the Aground music palette and like my mentality. So that is where my perspective was at the moment. I still wanted, like I said, to be good. And I wanted to put my best foot forward for it so that the listeners would have something to experience with at the same time, but to probably just reimagine, like, oh, if this was in the game, where would this be at? How could this have fit into it?
Do you still have the same kind of favorites that you had from before?
No, I think my favorites have changed.
Oh, what do you think some of your favorites are now?
I think some of my favorites are the new DLC tracks, the trailer music. I still like Mars Metal Alchemist because it was so hard to do. That was one of those, I don't know how to do this one. What does Mars music sound like? I remember seeing that on the stream. He's like, I don't know. So, well, I guess we'll just figure it out. But I was really trying to think, what does Mars music really sound like? I want to actually talk about something really brief and personal. Mars Metal Alchemist, I was inspired by Oren Coltrane for this one. I was working on his album, was mixing that, and he had said something to me, and I can't remember exactly what the words were verbatim, but he said, you just got to kind of let it happen. And I never heard that before in terms of music writing. And because I was struggling with it, like I was saying, I was averaging about, I could get the track done in about a day or two, but I would take a week because I realized that was what the game was telling me more so. Just take your time with it. Mm-hmm. And so Mars Metal Alchemist took me 2 weeks. So I had to switch up. But from that moment of that point of writing that track, I think is what the catalyst was for any other track on there. And that's why, oh, it's going to bug me if I don't have this title in front of me, but I'm going to do my best to remember that it was, oh yeah, look at that. Natura Sanctorium is the other DLC track. So those are my top, those three are still my top.
You did all the sound design for the game.
Almost every. I think maybe there's like 4 sounds that I didn't do. I still haven't got around to counting how many, but I'm scared.
Had you done that for their previous projects too?
Oh yes. It's quite often that I've done that, but I'm actually this is the year I've decided I'm not going to be doing much sound design for games.
Do you not enjoy it, or is it too time consuming? You really just want to focus on music?
I went to school for music. Yeah. I really enjoy exploring more of what's inside of me to bring out to what I feel I can share with the world. I'm good at sound design. I'm not great at sound design. And there's some really great sound designers out there. Yeah. I don't have the passion for it as much as I do creating adaptive music now. Adaptive music is my calling for that and I found adaptive music through doing implementation for sound design, but I found that I really enjoy adaptive music more, and I can pull a lot more composition ideas if my mind is locked in between both. And I'm still learning about different techniques, coming up with new music theories, and so on and so forth to kind of of implement and to push the sound of what game audio could be for music into the future. So I'm really passionate about that. And I think sound design will kind of distract me from it. And I find that I even procrastinate a little bit more.
You know, you also just really enjoy kind of sharing your experience as a musician working in game music and audio, and you have a robust online presence as a result. So talk to me a little bit about some of the things that you do. You stream and you try and give talks and things. So tell us about that side of your musical personality.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been streaming on Twitch for about 4 years. And then I was actually discovered by a gaming website that's quite veteran to GameSpot and IGN called Gaming Revolution, or Game Revolution, excuse me. Mm-hmm. And they were starting a stream member association, whereas they would just let you host, guest stream on their Twitch channel. And they thought my stream was quite interesting. I had posted in their Discord that I, just kind of self-promo, like, hey, like if you got some players that are interested to see how game music is, check out the stream at that time. And then I got a random email from the executive editor saying, hey, you want to actually like do this on our channel? And I was like, yeah, I've been trying to tell IGN fools and buddy and chum up with those folks for years. I would go to GDC parties and be like, hey, like, check this out. Like, I'm that composer that's kind of coming up. They can have some cool tunes and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But nobody cared. And then these folks out of nowhere just they put me on, and I'm very grateful. I think I still haven't seen it, but talking about history, I think I'm the first video game composer to actually stream on a gaming website consistently. Oh, wow. That I don't see IGN showing how to make music. They may have done interviews about that, but nothing that's been consistent since June. I've been on that platform.
Wow.
And then to top on that, I became what they call me like the music ambassador of Indiecade, which I had performed at their show last year live and performed the Aground soundtrack, some of the selections in 2019. Yeah. And they came and said, hey, you're doing the show behind the scenes of called Compose music. I was like, yeah, I want to show how hard it is to make game music and why we should be compensated the way we should be to educate developers to say this is all the work it goes into it and more, but I'm going to show my typical workday of this. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, like absolutely. So thank you so much, to Indiecade as well, because then I started doing a specific show on their channel. Now I never do the same content on both channels.
Well, that's tough.
Much. It was in the beginning, but now I have a flow. It took me about 4 months, but I got into a flow of it, and and that keeps it unique. So you know what you're going to get per episode that you're watching, and so with that, I was excited to share that as well. It was my first year speaking at GameSoundCon about how I made music from Aground, and it got stepped into GameSoundCon and Pixel Pop Festival, and also Game Devs of Color Expo. So nice. I've been just speaking about mostly really how it's done, my approach to how to not make the music monotonous, like my styles, my tips and techniques, because I didn't. They didn't teach game audio where I went to school. I learned this all on my own. Yeah. I learned it. I read a lot of stuff online. I bought game audio books. I did the homework. I did the research. I watched. I looked. I listened.
Yeah, so where do people find those streams then? I mean, Twitch, but tell us where to go for each of those streams.
Sure. Yeah, it's twitch.tv/game_revolution. And then it's twitch.tv/Indiecade. And then every once in a while, you'll catch a random stream, typically still, and I'm twitch.tv/gamercomposer.
Nice. So are you playing anything right now? What games are you playing?
Oh, the loaded question.
Yep.
I love it. Right now, I was playing. So last night I was playing Darkstone. I started that in 2019 around December.
Ooh, okay.
I almost beat it in 7 days and got stuck. So I've been trying. I was like, we got to finish these games. I have an issue finishing games.
Okay.
I get to like the near end of the game and I just stop. And I don't know why. I either like it too much or I'm not ready to, or I can't get past it.
I have the same problem. Yeah.
Oh, so you understand.
Sometimes I do have that problem. Yes. Go on. Yeah.
Legend of K on PS2, fantastic music, Emily. I highly recommend you might want to check that one out. Holds up pretty well, especially the graphics too. On PS2.
Okay.
The Escape from Monkey Island, and that was on PS2 as well. I'm playing that. I'm playing Risk World Domination, which I actually enjoyed.
Nice.
I found that was my first time playing Risk, and I played that for like 4 or 5 hours 2 nights ago.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool. Yeah. A Fallout deep cut called Brotherhood of Steel. It's a PS2 game. I found it at a thrift store because, and it's hilarious. It's actually pretty cool, top down.
Neat.
And I can't say I had a lot of good fun with this top 3D person grim post-apocalyptic universe with mature content and help jokes. Got a couple more in there for you. I'm playing Dark Souls, and I'm playing Vanquish, and I'm playing Valkyria Chronicles.
Wow. That's a list, man. I am so impressed. I get so hyper-focused on a game, and almost to the exclusion of playing anything else is how I tend to play, which can be problematic. I'll dabble in games especially for interview purposes. If I'm going to be, I'll dabble, but I might not completely finish a game in that instance until after I'm done with whatever I'm in the middle of. You know what I mean? That's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a video game composer. I should be studying and learning everything that I can possibly soak up and understand. And the reason I'm actually going through this is because I wanted to do a different type of series for the new year about my take on some of how the music, things that people ask me about influences and such. Mm-hmm. And so I was thinking of the ones that really stick with me are the ones I'm going to probably do a small video about in terms of the entire game, not just the music itself. And then I also have a really big collection I need to get through, and I'm going to sell off most of these games that I just decided I was going to just buy up. And so I'm thinking I'm the ones I'm going to keep and I know I'm going to finish. But you have to pop them in. Am I having fun? That's number one. Mm-hmm. Can I learn something from this somehow, some way? That's number two. And is this a game worth keeping? Meaning, is it kind of like semi-collectible? Do you care enough? Mm-hmm. If it's not fun, I don't care if it's collectible or not. It's out of here. It's gone. It's someone else can enjoy it.
Yeah.
I've got to Marie Kondo my collection right now.
And then music-wise, what are you creating these days? What are you working on?
Music-wise, I'm working on a retro album for a library. Reverse Play has commissioned me for my specific sound. And so We're just doing a very small album, like 5 tracks. And one of the singles is already out. They just haven't really like totally announced it, but I'm just sneaking in there. More scoops for you. That's all it is. And then I'm working on an album I was supposed to work on, frankly, for the past 2 years, especially this year, but I'm really going to get it done. I don't want to share that one just yet because I think it's going to be a really good like splash. But then at the same time, I worked on a couple prototypes for one type of Monster Hunter, Pokemon Go type of game, another one that's like a dungeon crawler with like Dark Souls type of style feeling, but then it has some other things. And then I'm trying to wrap up the Reclaim Earth soundtrack, and I'm also trying to wrap up the Dark Pac-Man Thief game as well.
Whoa, I don't think I've talked to you about that.
Yeah, that's a little throwback NES style with more through composed techniques.
So explain that. I mean, explain Through Composed.
So Through Composed is a musical form. Typically, you have your AB or your ternary form, or AB would be binary form. Ternary would be like AB, A or C or something like that, A prime or some such. But Through Compose would be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, all the way through the letters of how many different things that typically don't call back to one another. And so I kind of mix binary and Through Compose together, or ternary and Through Compose together, because I do some callbacks and just in a different style, like maybe theme and variations could be considered, somewhat of a song form. Mm-hmm. And so with that, I'm just basically trying to keep the listener engaged. I do not want them to be bored. I want you to always not expect what you think you were going to. And the way that I figured that out is to just continue to do the Through Compose format, which I guess innately did the entire time, which is why it probably doesn't catch on, because we're so conditioned to hearing melodies and themes and things calling back and things returning. But it's 2021. Are you bored? Don't you want to hear something new?
Yes.
I'm not taking anything away from that. And of course, I still practice those things. But I definitely go with the mantra of 2 different things. An Alfred Hitchcock style of, show me what comes next. I know what's happening. And he says, do you? Along with the old madman saying of Don Draper, says, if you don't like what's being talked about, change the conversation. So I flip it and say, if you don't like what's being heard, write something different.
Well, Chase, where can people find your Aground Deluxe soundtrack?
They can find your Aground Deluxe soundtrack on Tidal, Amazon Music, YouTube, Bandcamp, which you'll get an exclusive sheet music transcription by David Peacock.
Oh, nice.
Which is, yes. So
He's
there's
great.
3 tracks.
Yeah,
he is. He's masterful. So if you buy the soundtrack from Bandcamp, you'll get 3 parts of that, which was transcribed. You'll get Ancient Aquatic Energy.
Oh, yes.
You'll get Brave Crusader, which I think is a blast to play on there. And you'll get Nightly, which a lot of the Agroundians love that track. So you'll get 3 transcribed piano sheet music forms of that on there too. It would also be on Deezer, and it's also on, I'm missing one, and Pandora and Spotify.
Well, what more do you want to say about any of the music?
Give it your best listen. You'll be pleasantly surprised about what you'll find in there. I think there's something for everyone in there. And I was happy to reach a lot of people that I did with this one because I really didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't. When I say I didn't know what I was doing, I mean I didn't know if it was people were going to like it and if it was going to stick, because it's been a decade of trying to figure out what works.
Well, I just think it's great. I love the variety in your music and the creativity, and it always does sound new to me, and I love listening to it. So thank you, Chase, for talking with me about it today.
Emily, it's been a grand pleasure and an honor, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you for listening to Level with Emily. You can learn more about Chase Bethea and see a playlist, also support Level with Emily on Patreon at patreon.com/level. I'm Emily Reese. Sam Keenan is our producer. Say hi, Sam.
Hi there.
You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Level with Emily, and learn more about us at levelwithemily.com, made possible by Adam Selvage at Tiki Web Services. Composer Brad Gentle manages our YouTube channel. Level with Emily Reese is a production of June Media, Inc. Here at Level with Emily, we're part of the Audio Podcast Alliance. It features a hand-picked selection of the very best podcasts about sound. You can hear the latest episodes from our friends in the community at audiopodcast.org.